At my son's high school graduation, my parents announced they were taking over his college fund for my nephew instead. My husband laughed and said, "That's funny because we moved it last month." My parents started screaming when they realized it was already gone. We were at the graduation dinner, a nice steakhouse we'd saved up for. My son Max had worked so hard, AP classes, extracurriculars, part-time jobs, to get into his dream college. Right after the drinks arrived, my mom tapped her glass and stood up. "We've decided Max's college fund will go to his cousin Jackson instead. He needs it more." Silence. Felix tightened his grip on his fork. Max's face went pale. My dad nodded along. "It's what's best for the family." Jackson, my nephew, the kid they'd always favored and bailed out over and over. What they didn't know was that years earlier, they'd convinced us to let them manage the account for better interest rates. We'd been young and naive enough to agree. At the time, the account was in their names, though Max was listed as the beneficiary. Felix leaned back and chuckled. "That's funny because we moved it last month." My mother blinked. "What? We saw this coming. Transferred everything to a new account in our names weeks ago." My mother's face turned red. "You had no right." My father slammed the table. "That money was meant for family. Max is family." I said, "That fund was his. You're being selfish." My mom spat. "You're ruining everything. They'd never planned for that money to be Max's. They'd been waiting to take it." Max stood up. "I don't need anything from you. Not your money, and definitely not you in my life." We walked out. They screamed after us, but I knew we'd done the right thing. What I didn't know was how far they'd go. Endless, furious voicemails came first. My brother texted, "Jackson needs that money more than Max. You're being selfish." A week later, our bank called. "Your parents tried to access Max's old account, pretended to be you, said it was a family emergency. We flagged it." I called my dad. "You tried to steal from us? We wouldn't have to if you weren't unreasonable." My mom cut in. "If we take this to court, they'll agree we have a right to it." 3 days later, a lawyer's letter arrived. They were suing us. We gathered every document. Then my parents produced a receipt, a $2,000 deposit from when Max was a baby. "That gives you control?" I asked. My mom smiled. "It was a contribution. Without it, you wouldn't have had the foundation." The court ruled they had no control, but their $2,000 had to be returned with interest. It was a small win, but the message was clear. 2 weeks later, Felix came home pale. They reported us to the IRS for tax fraud. I started digging. Years ago, Felix had helped them with a rental property. I pulled the records. They'd underreported rental income for 15 years. I called my mother. "I found the real tax fraud. Your rental income. Drop this or the IRS hears about it." "You wouldn't. Try me." 2 days later, our case was dropped. Max's financial aid unfroze. But they weren't done. Late one night, glass shattered, footsteps inside our house. Felix grabbed the bat, then Max's voice. "Mom? Dad?" We rushed to the stairs. Jackson stood in our living room, drunk, wild-eyed, holding a crowbar. "Where's the money?" he slurred. "I deserve it. They promised." They couldn't touch the money legally, so they sent their grandson to do their dirty work. Max stepped forward. "It was never